Abraham, at some point when he was waiting, he said, Lord, what about my servant? My servant has a son. Why don't you give the inheritance to him, to Eliezer? Because I don't have a son. My household is barren. We don't have children. So why don't you give it to my servants? They can carry on the lineage. They can carry the inheritance. And the Lord insisted and said no. Then Haggai came into the picture, and Sarah, literally gave Haggai to her husband to be a child, which there are so many moral issues about that. And I thank God for revealing that, Haggai actually got justification for that. But through her generations, if the Lord allows, we would go into that. But she gave Haggai to Abraham, and Abraham got a child from Hagar, and Hagar bore him Ishmael. And when he presented Ishmael before the Lord to say, why don't you bless Ishmael instead? God insisted and said no. God insisted and said no. The one I'm going to give you is going to be through Sarah. And Abraham, that's what I'm saying, that Abraham at some point was just saying, why don't you give it to this one? Why don't you give it to that one? Why don't you give it, there are so many possibilities, Lord. Why would you want the possibility that is the most hardest, the most ridiculous possibility, the one that's not one, that's the one you want to that's the possibility you want to take. But we know that God can do all things, nothing is too hard for him. But despite this, it's the idea that Abraham had to wait, and in his waiting his faith grew. And in his waiting, he didn't know and didn't understand that he was producing a faith that would go on. It's sort of like an inheritance of faith that would last generations upon generations.